You want me to put that on my Tudor?
This one's wife, Jessica Mulroney, ready to strike. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. Friends. No, not the television programme, but in the context of the narcissistic dynamic, friends are non-intimate secondary sources. They are there to be controlled. That's often relatively easy to do. They provide fuel. Their fuel provision is of moderate potency. That's their position in the fuel hierarchy. They are often useful for character trait acquisition and residual benefits. And one of the largest residual benefits that friends provide to mid-range narcissists in particular is the facade. The narcissist will largely treat friends in a favourable manner. This is because, first of all, they don't interact that often with the friend, so the friend doesn't actually have the opportunity to threaten the need for the control in such a way that results in them receiving lots of devaluing behaviours. Instead, they might get the occasional corrective devaluation, and they may not even notice it. Furthermore, because the value that the friend provides in respect of the facade means that the narcissist is less inclined to go absolutely medieval on that appliance, because they form part of the facade of showing to people that the narcissist is a wonderful person. Their acknowledgement of the narcissist as a pillar of the community, their praise for the narcissist as a great friend, their support of the narcissist for having always been there for me, demonstrates a considerable value in relation to the construction of the facade. Thus, the narcissism looks, for most instances, to protect that aspect of the facade. There are instances where a narcissist will be horrible and unpleasant towards a friend should the need for control and fuel dictate it. But in broad brush terms, most non-intimate secondary sources, friends of the narcissist, are treated well. They're subjected to the shelf dynamic, meaning the narcissist picks them up and puts them down as and when it suits the narcissist. The narcissist might show support for the friend, but remember, it's false. It isn't a genuine form of support or compassion. It's simply done because it serves the purposes of the narcissist to present in that manner. It is often the case with those narcissists that they maintain the facade utilising those friends, so the friends don't have anything really particularly bad to say about the narcissist. Even when they might learn of the narcissist perhaps having a difficult marriage, they still tend to be supportive of the narcissist because their view is, well, they've always been okay with me and relationships do fall down, so I'm not going to judge in that regard. It's also the case that it benefits the narcissist with this facade because they can triangulate, for instance, the intimate partner primary source with the facade, so that if that intimate partner primary source, who has been subjected to the sustained devaluation, tries to tell other people about the horrible behaviour of the narcissist, they tend not to believe them. What? You're telling me that Keith did this and that? Doesn't sound like the man that I know, because Keith has always treated that friend pleasantly as part of their role in the facade, and thus it makes it more difficult for the intimate partner primary source to be believed. Accordingly, friends have a significant value to the narcissist in that regard, especially in respect of their facade management capabilities. For many narcissists, they tend to keep fairly constant numbers in that non-intimate secondary source banding. Some friends will be swapped in and out, some will be long-standing friends. There may be some churn in relation to them. But they tend to keep that same strata in place. And it is only with certain narcissists, which includes this one's wife, that as a consequence of their own elevation of circumstances, that they decide to leave that particular stratum behind. So, for instance, we know with this one's wife, and I've talked about it previously, that her childhood friends have been left behind because they no longer serve a purpose to her, because she's moved into a different area whereby the people that she is involved with in that new area are worth more than the existing friends. And because they're not friends in the truest sense, and because this one's wife has no sense of accountability or obligation to them, they can be disengaged from or just left on the shelf as she makes a new set of friends. And thus, with certain narcissists, what can happen is that they move on to a new group, and then they can move on to another new group as they, in effect, social climb. It's invariably the case that most narcissists, where if there is a falling out with a friend, it doesn't tend to cause a huge amount of damage to the narcissist. First of all, it's not something that necessarily happens that frequently for reasons that I've explained. And when it does, it's not like the friend has the capacity to gain a lot of attention about the fallout. People who still remain friends with the narcissist will think, well, it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, 2 sides to every story, etc. The unknown narcissist is always all right with me, so I don't want to take sides, I'll stay friends with both. Or because the narcissist embarks on a charm offensive, they stay allied to the narcissist and they don't bother with the now disengaged from friend as much. And that disengaged from friend, who has been cast aside by that narcissist and devalued, invariably leaves the group or has nothing more to do with the narcissist and perhaps mutters and moans to a few people, but not a lot comes out of it. And there isn't a lot of backlash for the narcissist. But where that narcissist is prominent, such as this one's wife is, this raises a problem. In that instance, a disengaged from friend or a long-term shelved friend may come back to haunt that narcissist. The reason being, people will actually pay attention to what that disengaged from friend has to say. When it's just the comings and goings of friends in a small town, the world isn't going to be interested. But when you have somebody who's infamous, who is regularly spoken about in the media, when a friend comes forward with something to say about them, then certain aspects of the media want to listen and will give them a platform. And this then becomes dangerous for the narcissist. Naturally, when this one's wife disengaged from Jessica Mulroney, she operated in the moment without any due concern for what might happen in the future. She gives no thought to the potential skeletons in the cupboard that Jessica Mulroney might have access to. This is because this one's wife, as a middle-range type A narcissist, isn't thinking ahead as to what might happen. Her narcissism causes her to be focused on the moment. Thus, she disengaged from her father without appreciating how bad that would look to people at large who regularly state to her, why don't you go and visit your father? The fact that she has nothing to do with her royal in-laws. Again, she disengaged from them for the purposes of the assertion of control in the moment, and then thereafter has no regard to how that might make her look in the future. This is one of the major weaknesses of the narcissist, particularly where they've gained prominence so that people are scrutinizing their actions. For this one's wife, she disengaged from Jessica Mulroney. Her narcissism deemed that there was no purpose to be served in maintaining that friendship, and thus she was cast to one side. This one's wife doesn't think about what could happen in the future because her style of narcissism doesn't function that way. That's why she fucks up so often. But with a prominent narcissist such as this one's wife, the friend emerges from the shadows with tales to tell. And, according to Geo News and the enigmatically named Web Desk, it appears Jessica Mulroney has a lot to say about this one's wife. And insiders believe the dangers she poses are becoming this one's wife's biggest nightmare at the moment. According to their findings at Radar Online, Jessica has carried the weight of the fallout for years, and she feels her reputation and her friendship were ruined by false stories. A book would finally give her the chance to set things straight. Now, ordinarily, if the narcissist and the friend were not people we'd ever heard of, and the friend decided, I'm going to write a book about how nasty this person is, probably about 6 people would read it, and the world largely would carry on without knowing anything about the spat. Therefore, in such circumstances, the narcissist essentially gets away with it, because they are able to continue to control the other people, and the complaining friend doesn't have a large enough platform. But for this one's wife, because she's courted the infamy on an international scale, there are people who are interested. And the potential is that Jessica Mulroney writes a book that people want to read, that people will buy, and that the media will take extracts from. For those unversed with the reasons behind the duo's fallout, it all relates to the accusation made by influencer Sasha Exeter. At the time, she claimed Mulroney had problematic behaviour and antics. After an apology was sent out, though, it's claimed this one's wife could not get over her decision to bring up her close friendship so publicly. That was hugely offensive to this one's wife, in other words, a massive threat to control, and the deciding factor for her. This one's wife considers the relationship to be done. What's even more concerning for this one's wife is that Jessica Mulroney has kept the evidence. Back in 2020, no one defended her, and she was left silent while rumours ran wild. Pausing there, whilst back in 2020, the likes of your glorious narrator and others were highlighting the problems of this one's wife, the world at large hadn't yet really cottoned on to what an awful individual she is. As I regularly explain, give the narcissist enough rope, 5 years passes, and evidence after evidence after evidence, incident after incident after incident, demonstrates the nastiness of this one's wife, so that now people view her differently to the way that they once did. And they are more likely to take notice of someone saying she's not a very nice person and be more likely to believe it. Accordingly, now, 5 years after that event, a book would give Jessica Mulroney the chance to reclaim her story and address everything, from the bridesmaid dress drama with Princess Charlotte to her friendship with this one's wife after the wedding. A friend has come forward to reveal it's the worst nightmare for this one's wife, because the prospect of Jessica speaking out makes her visibly anxious. This one's wife has worked hard to shape her own narrative, in other words, to maintain control by shutting people up, and the idea of a former confidant challenging that terrifies her. Well, it would certainly cause a problem for her, because if somebody's going to come along and say, actually, I'm going to tell you how it is, and I've got evidence, that amounts to a significant threat to this one's wife's control, and, of course, it adds up with all the other incidences of people pointing out that this one's wife is a bully and a nasty individual. Thus, Jessica Mulroney looks ready to strike through writing a book. And ordinarily, this isn't such a problem for the narcissist, because the person who is the friend is not somebody that's afforded a significant platform. But for someone like this one's wife, Jessica Mulroney will be. And if she writes the book and presents the evidence, this is going to present yet another instance of unpleasant, awful behaviour by this one's wife to add to the already significant accumulation. Significant problems ahead for this one's wife. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.